Okay, so I read A Separate Piece by John Knowles, and I selected this book for my summer reading because when I was at the bookstore looking for books, I asked the person at the front desk what one of the easiest reads and one of the shortest books off the list were, and they suggested A Separate Piece. So this is the plot summary of A Separate Piece. As the life of 17-year-old boys going to a military boarding school in New England during the early years of World War II, best friends Jean and Phineas have crazy lives. Even though Jean and Phineas may be best friends, they are exact opposites of each other. Jean is a lonely, intelligent, and reserved boy, while Phineas is an athletic, taunting, and handsome boy. In A Separate Piece, you read as these friends go through many difficult obstacles in their friendship. A character's arc is the main character's journey of growth, learning, and change as the plot unfolds. Main character Jean Forrester has a difficult journey toward maturity and the adult world. Being 17 years old, Jean is trying to figure out who he is, but it's going to take more than just a snap of his fingers to figure that out. Jean's journey towards maturity begins the moment his best friend Phineas, also known as Finny, forces him to jump off the limb of a tree into a lake. From then on, Jean had quite the ride. First, Jean gets blindsided from his school work when he starts to dislike Finny's attitude toward authority. Finny wears the school's tie as a belt and dresses in a pink shirt for school tea time one day. But Finny always gets away with everything. The teachers always forgive him. Jean starts to get jealous of Finny and thinks that everything he does is a competition. In addition to Finny's wrong dress code, he decides that they should jump off from the tree again, which is forbidden for underclassmen. But Jean still does it to prove his worthiness to Finny. While they were on the branch of the tree, Jean shakes the tree branch, trying to mess with Finny, but Finny falls and ends up breaking his leg. During this part, we see Jean's ignorance and his temptation to be better than Finny. Jean begins to feel guilty for what he's done and realizes his jealousy towards Finny. He also realizes that Finny was never trying to compete with Jean, but that he just happened to be, indeed, perfect in every way. Because Finny can't play sports anymore from his injury, he forces Jean to pursue his dream. Finny trains Jean for the Olympics, and Finny has to agree that Jean is making lots of progress. Unfortunately, Finny ends up passing away during his second surgery on his leg after falling downstairs in the school. At Finny's funeral, Jean feels as though he was the one dying, so he decided to do something worthwhile with his life. Jean fights in the war that he'd been training for the past 4 years of his life in high school, but never killed anyone because the only person he thought he had ever killed was Finny. Two connections I made from the book A Separate Piece were from two movies I've seen. The first one is from a movie called Bridge to Terabithia. This movie is about two outcasts named Jess and Leslie. Since they're both outcasts, they spend a lot of time together. They take over a part of a nearby forest that's only accessible by swinging on a rope swing. They called this Terabithia. In Terabithia, they can escape from the bullies. There, they are royalty. One day, during a rainstorm that's been going on for days, Jess thinks it's too dangerous to go to Terabithia. He forgets all about telling Leslie. When he came home, he finds out Leslie went to Terabithia without him and died while trying to attempt to cross the creek. He doesn't know what to think of it. He doesn't know how to react, just as Jean did with Finny. The second connection I made to the book was a movie called My Girl. This movie is about a little girl named Vada. She is obsessed with death. Her mother is dead, and her father runs a funeral parlor. Her best friend is a little boy named Thomas. He's allergic to absolutely everything. Thomas goes into the forest one day to find a ring that Vada dropped when they went into the forest together. He kicks a wasp's nest, not knowing what it is, and gets stung to death. Poor Vada blamed it all on herself, just as Jean did. I would definitely recommend the book, A Separate Piece, to a reader my age because it is an easy read, very understandable, and I just thought it was a great book in general. The plot was very interesting.